Hey everybody, welcome to Born Again to Live on Monday, June 1st. Hard to believe it's already June. Anyways, Friday's conversation with Chris and Christine actually was a two-part conversation that I had to edit and change a little bit. So today we're going to get the rest of that conversation. So if it sounds like we're starting in the middle, we kind of are. But just wanted to let you know what's going on. All right, enjoy. So you didn't want to be a pastor's wife, but you are, and you've been together 26 years, right? So, and you've been working in ministry every part of that, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Talk to me about how, I don't care who answers the question, how your home life and your ministry life blend together with God being the center, and how the stresses of pastor's wife or pastor can come home, but that doesn't bother the home. Make sense?
I think
It's almost like the question is there a delineation? You know, here we do ministry, here we do home, and does it kind of come together, or maybe it stays separate? I don't know. I'm a big compartmentalizer, so I would imagine, like, because they both center around God, so there's kind of like a little ministry marriage sandwich with God in the middle. I don't know, but it is a good question, but maybe we didn't prepare them for it.
I'll collect your thoughts, Christine, but on my end, because honestly, she and I haven't really sat down and discussed anything as of late. We've only been pastoring full time since September, and prior to that, it was interim pastor. Now, evidently, unbeknownst to me and many other people saw it, I was wearing a hat long before it had title pastor on it. I honestly believe whatever your calling is, you'll find yourself doing it. People struggle with that. That's a whole nother topic. We haven't really been forging through this yet for a very long time, but so far on my end, the approach toward ministry, I do compartmentalize work. You got to compartmentalize family, dealing with Teen Center at Big Blue, dealing with pastoring at the church. Try pretty much forgetting other parts because you're compartmentalizing. I heard one pastor tell me one time in your life in ministry, you're going to be neglecting somebody. You're either going to be neglecting your wife, your ministry, or your God. Because we're not perfect and our focus is not perfect. Thank God he has grace to center us many a time. Some people just spin donuts, you know, they like to make a lot of noise, but they're not going anywhere. You got to be focused. Communication is the biggest thing that, you know, we need to work on more, and I think every relationship needs to work hard. I'm outspoken, obvious. I always attack a situation. I won't let the sun go down upon our wrath. I will deal with it, maybe to my detriment towards her. But when she's quiet, she's held back. Sometimes she may hold her tongue longer than she should, and it comes out maybe at the wrong time when you do that. There's wisdom in communicating before it's a time bomb blowing. And if that's in your personality, it's just something you need to be aware of. If you don't communicate until it's explosion, you need to back up and realize, you know, and maybe the person isn't really listening to either, or you felt not here, not heard.
Mm-hmm. But I guess, I mean, we've been in ministry pretty much our whole marriage, but in different aspects. I've been playing trumpet at church since 10th grade, and I mean, I enjoy it.
I did not know this, Christine. What in the world?
She was on TV. I have never been on TV.
Yes.
So what you're saying is you were tooting your own horn?
Pretty much. But the being a part of a ministry or an area of ministry, it's always good to stay focused on God, to look to Him for guidance, direction, because what He calls you to do now may not be what we're going to do down the road. So we got to stay focused on Him and what He says. Communication is very good key to ministry, marriage, every part of life. If you want a friendship, you got to have communication, and that's very true to anything we do. But we need to stay focused, and so it's just we have to just ask God for guidance, help.
And a lot of grace. I feel like,
Yes.
you know, we call Chris Mr. Grace on this show often because you speak every prayer. You almost start it with grace, and that is really all we need most of the time. And so yeah, I would imagine that your ministries, that your marriage is just doused in grace 24/7, or at least that's the blessed hope, right?
There you go. Yeah, because early on, I struggled as a believer. Struggled to try to measure up to God's potential. Struggle to be a good son. And somewhere in reading Paul's writings and getting the grace of God to see, grace for grace, it's not so that you can act a fool. It's not so you can be an idiot. It's not so you can sin and do whatever. And Paul's clear in that in Galatians. The grace of God gives you the ability to do what you can't do. You can't do ministry without His grace. One thing as pastor's wife, my wife, as for myself as pastor or husband, is knowing where your gift is and not going beyond it. There is a huge amount of people, well, I say this, there's a huge amount of people that don't know how to say no when they're asked to do something that's outside of their gift. And there's a huge amount of people that need to learn to say yes, to do something. But the reality is, in the ministry, you can't go beyond who you are. In marriage, this is one thing that I love about my wife, and that God gave me a person who was not going to demand me to be somebody I was not. There's no facades. Who I am is who I am. I don't have to pretend to be something, and then all of a sudden, marriage ceremony is on me, and I was surprised. Well, maybe she was surprised. She did do a little change in my personality. I was not always who I am now, and some of that's from her. I blame her for who I am, even though she didn't try to change me. Yeah, well, but
She is the better electrician of the two, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but
That's what we say.
no, I mean, you got to accept people and the gifts that they have, and understand, let them live in what they are. That is one key to our marriage, that, I don't expect her to be somebody else. She doesn't expect me to be anybody else. But the grace of God continues to work in us, to change us, to grow us. And I'll just give you this. It's not just marriage. It's not just ministry, but it's in any relationship. Iron sharpens iron. And I have seen people run away from situations, run away from either, ministry, churches, marriage, because of conflict. Now, it depends on how nasty this conflict might be. But those who stay are the ones who grow. You cannot grow if you run away from every situation you face. No more than you can grow in God if you're just running to every miracle after miracle, want to be where there's excitement. But it's an immature Christian, and I'm getting a little off, but it's the same with marriage. Your relationship with God, your relationship with church, your relationship with marriage, your relationship with ministry. If you're going to do anything for God, you have got to be able to stand when there is not excitement in the relationship, when God isn't pouring out his Spirit and you're filled with so much of the power of God and you feel the tingling and you feel whatever you feel. The marriage, oh, you wake up with, woo, the goosebumps, and there's just such an excitement and fresh love. God tells us to return to our first love. Now, we have to be like little children with God. We've got to be open to the fact that there's more to him than we know. And there's more to my wife than I know. There's more to the relationships. But to be successful in your walk in ministry, it ain't based on the numbers and all the stuff that we try to measure. And I guess I'm talking to you too. One thing that you got to understand is those who are faithful in the marriage when the honeymoon's over, those who are faithful in the church when things are not going smooth in the church, those who are faithful in ministry because the ministry is not the woo that we thought it was going to be. When the lights are out and when people aren't watching or smacking you on the back saying, man, that was an incredible message. All that. It all ties together. You have to be faithful to God in what he called you to do when it isn't rewarding to your flesh.
Preach it.
So you got to die to yourself. If your marriage is going to be successful, you got to die to self. If your church is going to be successful, you got to die to yourself. Jesus said, take up the cross, carry that cross. Was that a waved hand to say, oh, my wife raised her hand. We talked earlier about the mic getting interrupted when too many people talk. I thought she was wanting to say something. But I just say, you got to be, faithfulness is the one who can walk through the desert to homes. Faithfulness is the ones who can go through situations when there is not fruit seen. The farmer, you've got to plow. When the plant is the seed is in the ground, you don't run out the next day and look for it to be a harvest. This ministry at the Big Blue is the same way. You're the fruit of your marriage, the fruit of anything you're involved in. There are times when you don't see the seed growing. There's times when it's not as exciting, but the fruit is enduring to the end.
Great message. But I want to transition back to Christine for just a minute. I was sitting here thinking about Christine, and you talked about how you were in the missions field and you were looking towards missions, and you got married to Chris, the goofball, and he pulled you in other directions, and then you got the family and all of that. And I think that speaks to where you're at with God, because you were so adaptable to change that I know your heart's still for the missions and to go reach the lost. And you do it here at Big Blue. I mean, tomorrow we're going on hike night and she's making the PB&Js for us. And I just think about that's your way now of reaching those same missions people that you were intended on in college. And maybe one day you're going to do those missions again after Michael's out of school or have a big wherever. You might be able to go back into that or be the missions coordinator at Big Blue or whatever. But I think that shows where you're at with God, that you're willing to take whatever he calls you to do.
Well, we've got to adapt to what our situation is at the moment, because, yes, I feel like the missions, but if we can't reach those that are in our neighborhood and in our community, in our state, how can we go somewhere else and reach those that need God?
And that starts in your house.
Exactly.
I mean, in your marriage, your kids, Chris said you have 4 or 3 wonderful kids. Mine is 4th for you, something. But that know the Lord and see it through you daily, right?
Yes.
That's your mission. And I think that shows your testimony to where you're at with God is that their foundational stone that we always talk about stacking stones would be their mom.
Yeah.
So,
We take the situation that we have and just pour out into them. We've poured out to our kids as much as we can. Sometimes not as much as we should, but we do our best to speak to them, speak life into them, and just to let them know that they're loved.
Yeah.
That's the most important, and God loves them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very hard to convince kids, like if they can't see it in their own household, within their own, family members, like when they don't see it there, like they're not going to see it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys certainly model it to your family, to these kids at Big Blue. You're certainly the couple that everyone at Core Team, we would all love to have our partners with us in ministry. And yet, as Eric pointed out at the beginning of this podcast, you guys are the only ones that do it together, and I'm sure it grows you guys at times. It challenges you at others. It stretches you very thin, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I totally understand what you're saying, Christine, because like what I've been saying lately is like, I don't really have the luxury to wish things were differently. And that's like, I think the secret of life. You can't sit there and say, oh, well, if only this or if only that, because those days and those times may never come. So either we're going to work with what God has given us right here, right now. That's our mission, is whatever is right here and right now. And there's joy in that. There's contentment in that. There's success in that. And, yes, you've managed to raise these 3 incredible young men, and you're going to go out into the world and just keep doing what you did there on a bigger scale. And so it's kind of exciting. I know you really did get sort of thrown into this pastoral thing. I know it wasn't probably exactly on your radar, but man, you guys are answering the call, and it's really exciting to see that.
You made a comment to wearing yourself thin, and you got to be careful with everything. I'm part of the praise and worship team. I help with the kids at church, pastor's wife, and here at Big Blue, there's other things that we do. Got housework.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let yourself get thinned out. Always be prayed up. Prayer is key to healthy marriage, healthy ministry, healthy family. Everything.
Family that prays together stays together. But it's true. I mentioned this in our Abandoned Lost podcast that Eric one day will find in the cloud. Something triggered me several years ago, might have been before Michael was born, to start praying as a family in the evening. Part of it is training. I wanted the boys to see what prayer was. I wanted to come together as a family, and it just, I felt that was a faithful thing. Christine is the comfort and the backbone of our family. We were graced to where she could stay home. She has raised these boys. To my detriment, there are times, I know especially with Michael, well, all of the boys, I haven't been there because of work, because of ministry, because. I try to stay home, and, there's times it's hard to do, but I have to lay down the tools but I am the worker, I'm the tool man Taylor. I'm doing everything. Big part of it, I like it until it gets frustrating or whatever, but yeah, we prayed together as a family. When the boys have friends over, very few of the friends have not prayed with us. We pray. And my part of that was, one, we as a family need to come together and focus on God. But 2, it was also to teach them prayer, because I'm a big fan of not repeating myself to God. If you have somebody that comes to you and regurgitates the very same lines to you every day, it ain't long before that's not a relationship. And that's how we sometimes treat God. God himself, when he was in flesh, Jesus said, don't pray repeated prayers that the heathen or the Pharisees, the hypocrites think. Pray, be honest, talk. Prayer is a fellowship talk with God, That comes hand in hand. If you can't figure out how to talk with God, you can't figure out how to talk with your wife. If I came to her and said the same thing every day, she'd knock me in the head. But honestly, her strengths are my weaknesses, and some of my strengths are her weaknesses. Or we just complement ourselves. God said when the two come together, they become one. And it's a fact. There are things in Christine that I don't have. And there are things in me that she doesn't have. And together, we make a team. And she's my best friend, so,
Complement each other.
You sure do. You definitely do.
All right, guys, thank you for listening to this conversation. I want to thank Chris and Christine Montgomery for having this conversation with us. It's one of those conversations that we needed to have, and we look forward to diving a little deeper into this topic in the future. But I want to show my appreciation to them for stopping by and having this conversation about marriage and ministry and the combination of the two. We need to dive deeper on this topic with them at some point in time because they are successful in both. So I hope it wasn't too choppy with the editing, but we appreciate you tuning in. All right, hear you tomorrow.